Entrepreneur life requires risk, persistence, and a slightly unreasonable belief that this thing you're building is going to work.
And let's not forget copious amounts of caffeine.
Yes, that too.
Hey guys, I'm Allison, the Caffeinated entrepreneur, an AI-powered business strategist and systems builder with an energy level that should probably come with a warning label.
And I'm Bernie, the man behind the mustache. I'm a virtual events producer who makes sure the tech works, the delivery is clean, and nobody panics, including Allison.
Each week, we are picking up the conversation where my weekly newsletter leaves off. No teaching, no pretending we have it all figured out.
Just two entrepreneurs talking honestly about the highs and lows of growing our own businesses.
And why some ideas are worth sipping on a little bit longer. Welcome to the Caffeinated Entrepreneur. Let's go behind the brew. Hey guys, grab your favorite caffeinated beverage and join us for today's episode where we're going behind the brew of issue number 42, Why You're Not Making More Money Even Though You're Brilliant. Hey Bernie, are you ready to be in the hot seat today?
I guess so. Let's rock and roll.
As long as you have your cup of coffee to get you through, we're going to make it.
You know I do.
Yes. All right, guys, today we are turning the tables. Last week, Bernie interviewed me and we got into my vulnerabilities and all the things I went through to get my business off the ground. And today we're going to dive into Bernie's journey. So that rhyme, did you catch that? Bernie's journey. This is what happens when we aren't scripted, guys. That's funny. So anyway, I am really excited because I know a lot about Bernie's background, but it's come to me over a long period of the last 2 years that we've known each other. And so to hear you kind of tell it in a concise story today, I think it's going to be really neat because I might put some pieces of the puzzle together that I didn't think that are put together yet. So let's just start off with the fact that you didn't actually start your company from scratch. You bought it, if I recall, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I bought the company January 1st of 2022.
Okay. So this is post-COVID, after the virtual training boom. So what was it like trying to build a business that was built on someone else's framework and reputation?
Oh, well, I guess let me back up the story just a little bit and we'll come to that. So I started working within the business about 5 years prior to actually purchasing it. I was a learning consultant, a virtual producer, and obviously a facilitator as well. And in the 5 years, I came to recognize how much I loved this space, the learning and development space, right? Helping other people to grow, seeing the light bulbs turn on. That's kind of been my MO throughout my corporate career. And one day I went to my predecessor and I said, hey, listen, I like this contractor lifestyle. I love the variety of projects I get to work on. You know, every time I work with another subject matter expert, I feel like I'm getting my own master class. Like, this is cool. I also really like to be able to say no. Like, it's cool to be able to turn down a project that I don't want to do.
Yep.
So I said, listen, like, I want to keep doing this. I like the lifestyle. How do I help you to grow the business so that self-servingly I can do more of this work? And she came back and said, Bernie, listen, I'm going to do you one better. What do you mean do me one better? And she said, you know, I'm 65. My husband's 67. He's retired. I'm looking to retire. I've actually been trying to sell the business for the last few years. And I didn't want to sell it to a larger company that might tear it apart, or not take care of my clients in the way that I have all of these years. And I've never had feedback or results like I've had with you, with my clients. And I think you're the right person to take it over. So obviously, initially I was shocked because I knew I couldn't afford to buy the company. I had not thought at that point about owning a company. But you know, eventually she kind of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. We set up terms and she more or less turned it over to me. It was interesting because I thought I was buying a business. And in hindsight, I didn't really buy a business. I bought a name.
Yeah.
Because as you kind of alluded to, she was the business previously. Her connections were how she was getting new business and new work to come in. So that was an interesting transition because the first year we were in business, or I took over the company. We did over $1 million in revenue. It was fabulous. It was great. And then the end of 2022, I lost two major clients that she had originally set up. Um, and new work just kind of started to dry up. Like her contacts were retiring themselves. So a lot of the connections that I had to previous it wasn't there anymore.
The generations were sort of all passing over
Exactly.
into, yeah.
Exactly. So, I had to start to figure out what does the new business look like, because I can't just rely on those previous relationships. And the last couple of years have been a little bit of struggle, kind of rebuilding, rebranding, figuring out what the new focus is. And I know some of the future questions we're going to be talking about here to kind of reflect on that. But it's been a hell of a learning process. I did not buy a business as much as I wish I had. I bought the name of a company, which had some value in and of itself. But at this point, 5 years later, 4 years later, um, I think I still have two of the original clients that I originally got with the company.
If you could go back to that moment when you signed on the dotted line and you knew then what you know now,
Mhm.
would you still have bought the business, or would you maybe have
Ooh,
decided to start something on your own?
that is such a good question. Knowing what I know now, no, I probably wouldn't have signed and bought the company just because I know what I know now. But knowing what I know now would only be the only reason I would start one on my own then, right? Like
Because of everything you've learned in 5
right,
years.
absolutely. Like I would not have started my own business back then. In fact, as kind of a kid growing up and what do I want to be when I grow up? I thought of myself as starting a business, but it was like a quick serve restaurant or a pizzeria or something. Never did I think professional services, training, corporate learning and develop. Like never, never.
Shocking. I think a lot of kids probably, on career day are like, I want to be a virtual producer and a
Right.
training broker. I'm shocked that
No,
more kids don't think that
right,
way.
right.
My gosh. So when did this dual audience model start to happen for you? So you were doing all of this corporate training. Did you start doing events and virtual trainings for kind of the one-offs and the solopreneurs just because it was like, hey, I can do this, let me help you out? Or was it an intentional business move to help supplement what wasn't working anymore?
So it was a little bit of both. On the corporate side, obviously COVID kind of launched us into the virtual training space, and we were still doing some work with educational components to that. Um, but when I started to see people going back to the office, I realized that I had to do something a little bit different, and it wasn't so much that I wanted to change my service offerings. I just had to figure out who could use my services and who had the money to afford it at the end of the day, right? So as I started to do more networking and I saw on LinkedIn, people are doing all these webinars and workshops and started to go to some of them. And I'm like, wow, like these are early days of COVID all over again, just dumpster fires. And that's when I recognized that could be a new revenue stream. Um, but I was very hesitant to dial completely into it because of the more traditional learning and development that my company was founded on. I felt like I kind of had to hold on to those roots,
Mm.
um, and maybe I didn't. I think that's what I'm realizing now is that I didn't. I could have made the pivot sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I know when you made the pivot because I was part of thrusting you into that decision in
Yeah.
my not bossy, just aggressively helpful way. But when you made that decision, was it hard and scary? Did it feel like relief that you were like, I'm finally unburdened? Like, what was that emotional moment that you felt when you were like, okay, I'm going to let go of something I've been carrying for a long time?
Yeah, it's I don't want to burst your bubble in this, Allison, but you weren't the first person to tell me that. A lot of
Dang it.
people, yeah, a lot of people have said that to me over the years. But it was going through your program and having some of the real looks in the mirror with the AI that made me recognize that I was kind of going down just a rabbit hole with the way that learning and development is currently. Um, and that this was really the opportunity. Again, I've been very hesitant to pursue it solely, but I think the emotional roller coaster was the denial piece. I didn't want to jump into it wholeheartedly and leave behind. I didn't want to surrender what I already had.
Yeah.
But the only way to really do it was to surrender that and like once I did it, once I started only really talking about virtual events and only meeting with people who are in and around that space, it started to change, right? Like almost
Mhm.
like magic.
Yep.
um, Clearly it's not magic. It's just being, intentional about what you're doing. But that was a big moment for me to be able to let go of what I was doing previously and talking about, yes, I'm a virtual event consultant, but I'm also a training broker.
Mhm.
I'm still a training broker. I still can do all of those things. Clients still come to me for those things. But what I talk about is virtual events. And coming to that conclusion was very freeing. Now I don't have to worry about the bigger L&D landscape. Somebody wants to talk about those things, I'm equipped to talk about them. I can help them with those things. But being able to solely focus on the virtual event piece of my business was very freeing.
Yeah, I feel like you don't know how many doors are gonna be opened until you start trying the handles, right? And all of a sudden you're like, "Oh gosh, that one's unlocked, that one's unlocked." Meanwhile, this whole time you were banging your head against a brick wall, and had no idea that the path was really right there in front of you. You
Yeah.
just had to decide to walk down it.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true. And it was also, again, from a networking perspective, very interesting because as I stopped talking about corporate learning and development, which most of the people you and I network with had no frigging clue what that meant,
Mhm.
but they understood what a master class was. They understood what a
Yes.
webinar was, right? And how,
Yep.
how I can help them with that. Yeah, so simple, stupid.
Loved that exercise that we did, where we did the buzzword, where we got to buzz in on everybody's intro when they said a word that didn't make sense or was a buzzword.
Yeah.
And I totally buzzed you for broker. I'm like,
Yes, you
I think
did.
investments, I think real estate. I don't think virtual events like broker just didn't fit for me, but it makes sense. I didn't come from a corporate background. So
Right.
none of that made sense. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay. So let's talk about, I know that you were already sort of working in both spaces, but then in that Q4 of last year, you really started to focus on individual virtual events for entrepreneurs.
Yep.
What walk us through what the last 3 months of 2025 really looked like for you, not just, in terms of direction for your business, but payoff, ROI. But
Mhm.
also, I'm just curious in terms of your own emotional state. I know you said initially it was very freeing, but when you start leaning into something, the ball starts rolling really fast. And then it's like, oh my gosh, because I know we
Yeah.
just talked today. You're back to back events today. You were exhausted last week because you just came off hot of an event. So
Yep.
you're now reaching a level inside this new business model it's a different problem, right? So
Yeah.
let's just walk through the last 3 months of 2025.
So, I would say it started to get hot and heavy in December, right? That's when I really started to get busy, which is notoriously a very slow time in generally in learning and development, but in the virtual event space too. People are on vacations and all the stuff. But it was really busy for me. And I would say that it did start in probably October, November timeframe, started to get the requests, the questions, people
The
being more
momentum built.
inquisitive, right? A little bit more momentum. So December, I wish I had the numbers in front of me right now, but December, I think I did 26 events.
What?
Yeah,
In probably about 3 weeks because no one's working the week of
right.
Christmas.
Exactly, exactly. So there were multiple days where we had multiple events. I had multiple producers working on multiple events. Um, it quite honestly, for a little bit, it felt like COVID again. Like I was like that busy doing events. And so that was invigorating. That was super awesome. But it also, to your point, it kind of shined a spotlight on some of my systems aren't quite where they need to be to handle this type of volume. And so definitely a relief in I've recognized what I want to do and how I'm going to talk about it, but then a change of stress, right? Now I need to figure out, okay, I've got all this volume. What do I do with all of this volume? How do I manage it? Which I think we're doing a pretty good job of. And I've got some resources now. You obviously being one from the AI side of things. I've now got an email marketing expert who's helping me with my CRM and my email automate, like
Mhm.
finding all the parts and pieces. That is the next fun part because I feel like that's
Yeah.
something I'm really good at is
Mhm.
bringing together a team, a group of people to do
Yep.
certain specialized tasks. And that's getting to be the next fun part of what I get to do and build is now it's not just I'm not just building it for me. I'm getting to bring in other people who are passionate about their thing in the process. And that's cool.
Yeah. Well, you're leading a team, which is so funny because a lot of people who start off as entrepreneurs, they're afraid to lead a team. They wait too long to hire and to bring in more experts because they're like, I have to control it all. And you're the flip side of that because of your background. You are like, no, no, no. That's the point, is to have the team. And so again, one of the beauties of this whole experience, being able to shed light from two different perspectives, like for me coming in from the entrepreneurial space, I'm like, I'm very slow, like, to add people to my roster of who I have to be responsible for paying. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's, just how it goes. But you're like, no, 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 let's get into the team.
Yeah, I'll honestly tell you, Allison, probably one of my biggest challenges early, to your point about timing for delegation and how it happens, because I was used to that team environment from corporate, I probably tried to start to delegate things too early in the
Oh.
business. That
Ooh,
was like I started early. I was paying people to do things that I clearly could have and should have been doing for myself based on where the business was. So I think that's a really important point that you make is knowing when to hand off, both, too soon or too late.
yeah. And I don't think anybody ever hits it just right. I mean, let's be honest, right? You're always just a little bit too late, or very too late, or you're just a little too early, right? I don't think any of us are like, oh, sweet spot, baby.
Yep.
Like, that's
You know
not
what?
reality.
Today feels just right to outsource my email. Yes. Yes, let's do that.
Every day feels like the right day to outsource email.
It's
Let's
so
be
true.
honest. Ah, oh my gosh. All right. So I know one of the calls that we had during when you were in my program, I had just happened to at that time help one of my clients shut down their business that they had been running for almost 5 years. I had been their business manager for about three of them. And I kind of helped them navigate closing their business down. And it was emotional, but at the same time, like this big sigh of relief. And I distinctly remember you had read that and you were like, "Oh, that one hit home, Allison." So, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to make a massive pivot, which kind of requires them to shut down a major part? Like, it's almost like they have to lose a limb, like kill their darlings. What advice would you give them as they make that massive transition so that they do it well?
Mm. Um, the short version, as said well by Nike, is just do it. Like you have to just commit to it. And I used the word earlier, surrender. Like
Mhm,
you literally have to surrender not only what you were doing previously, like you have to let go of the thing. You also have to surrender to what that new process is going to be and commit to doing it. Because you
mhm,
can't like if you're going to do something, you have to you can't half-ass it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? Like if you're going to make the change, you have to commit to doing it.
mhm,
When I was going through your program, that was something that I struggled with a little bit was commitment to actually going through all of the courses. I was committed to making the changes that I need to, and I was committed to spending the time working through the AI. Um, but I struggled with the course itself, right?
mhm.
So you have to choose what you're going to commit to and fully commit to that commitment. Uh,
That's but back to being a poet. I mean, that was just poetic right there.
was it? I don't know. I felt like Eminem's slightly off cousin.
All right, Bernie. So here's what I am taking away from your story today. You could be brilliant. You can actually have a ton of experience, and you can even have already proven that something will bring in revenue for you. But if you keep clinging to what used to work instead of what is actually working now, you're not only going to leave money on the table, but you might actually sink the ship. Would you say that's true?
I would say that is absolutely true. If I had solely stuck to the corporate audience that I was working with before, I don't know that I would still be in business. I would say that is a very accurate summation.
Yeah. And I think that the obvious breakthrough here was when you stopped splitting focus and you were like, I'm not going to try and resurrect what used to be my moneymaker. I'm going all in on the audience that I know needs me and is responding to what I have to offer. And it paid off in legit dividends in December and now launching into 2026.
Yep. Yep. It's been fabulous.
So, guys, if you're listening to this and you have your own business and you have made an offer and it's just not quite working anymore, we're not saying shut down, but we are saying maybe take a really strong look at the offer that you currently have. And if it's not working, maybe you need to find something that is. So, guys, thanks for listening. Keep showing up, keep taking the next step because the caffeine is strong.
And so are you.